What's going on, guys? I'm here with the Chicago Bears draft recap. And the Bears, well, we had a rather interesting draft week. Obviously, we started it off with the right tackle to plug and play next to right guard Nate Davis, presumably center Cody Whitehair, left guard Tevin Jenkins, and on the left side, you got Braxton Jones. Tevin Jenkins and Cody Whitehair are guys that I know their names have been thrown around in trade discussions multiple times over the last 2 or 3 years. So I'm not very sold on what we did in this draft. I figured you'd either at least get some guard depth or some center depth because you have some unknowns and potentially might be moving one of those two, if not both. I figured you'd go center. I figured you might go guard. Maybe you'll go somebody like a Jackson Kirkland, who's played a little bit of both in his college career. Maybe Jarrett Patterson, somebody that can play either of those positions as well, just so you have some insurance option. But that is not what the Bears did. They did get right tackle Darnell Wright, like we said. I think it's a good pick. Obviously, Jalen Carter being there. It was a little bit frustrating to see what could be a very good long-term player in Jalen Carter. I know there's character concerns. I know there's a lot of red flags that came up in his process. It's very frustrating to see potentially the best player in the entire draft fall in your lap at 9 and trade down one pick and only pick the fourth. But I think I've talked myself into it. Darnell Wright is the right pick. Obviously, sometimes you get tempted with best player available. I think Ryan Poles did the right thing by letting the Eagles take Jalen Carter, and then they still got their guy right tackle, very needed position there in Chicago. And now you just have two question marks potentially on your offensive line. I'm not really sure. Maybe we'll address it in undrafted free agency, which has been popping off here in the last 45 minutes, however long it's been since the draft. It's been popping off. People have been going left and right. For example, Isaiah Land, I believe he signed with the Cowboys, somebody I wanted the Bears to think about. They didn't go him. But let's talk about people not named Darnell Wright. Second round, 53rd, we went Gervon Dexter out of Florida. I don't mind this pick. We do need defensive tackles. Our defensive tackle heading into the season is going to be Justin Jones unless we did something in this draft. So I don't mind going defensive tackle. Maybe got him a little bit earlier than I would have expected, to be honest. But I will take a defensive tackle there. Then at 56, we traded back up and we took Tyrique Stevenson out of Miami, a corner that's going to play opposite side. Jalen Johnson should be starting day one there on that opposite side. I really like the kid. I think him and Jalen Johnson are going to be a nice pair. And then obviously you got Kyler Gordon moving to the slot next season. I really like Tyrique Johnson. I love that pick for us. Kind of one of the only picks that I felt really confident about here. The more that the time passes, I'm confident in the Darnell Wright pick. It's just really hard to look at a guy like Jalen Carter and think we could have had that. So I just was a little hesitant there. And then at 64, we took Zach Pickens, another defensive tackle, and this is where I started to scratch my head. Two defensive tackles within 11 picks of each other. I don't really know why. I know you need depth in that defensive tackle position. I'm okay with drafting depth. But what I'm not okay with is when you're drafting depth, when you need somebody to potentially replace Whitehair or Tevin Jenkins, or even depth at that position, which is even more critical for your team because you don't have anybody that can consistently and be reliable enough to block for Justin Fields, your franchise quarterback. You don't have anybody behind any of these O-linemen, really. You don't. You have Lucas Patrick, who has injury concerns at the center position. If that is your backup option to the Cody Whitehair, okay. Then who's your backup option for Tevin Jenkins? Another guy that has injury problems. Obviously, Lucas Patrick, you can move him around a little bit more. I certainly don't want Sam Mustipher to be our backup and worst case scenario, have to block for Justin Fields again. I don't want that. Apparently the Bears do. Oh, man, I don't know why we didn't go guard or center here at any of these spots. I thought Luke Whippler would have been good here. He ended up sliding a lot further than 64. I would have thought it would be good value there. I would have liked that pick. Um, Looking at maybe John Michael Schmitz, the Minnesota center, even. Um, there was a bunch of options at center. Olu out of Michigan, we could have went him late in day 3. I mean, there was options at center. We didn't go center. We didn't go guard after taking Darnell Wright. We stayed away from the offensive line, which I think is a mistake. I really do. I really do think that's a mistake. 2 defensive tackles within 11 picks of each other. I don't necessarily dislike the players. I don't. I actually do like both of these guys. These are both guys that I would have liked. If you told me going into the draft, I was like, oh, you're going to miss out on Jalen Carter, but you're going to get a star right tackle. You're going to get a corner 2, and you're going to get your starting defensive tackle. And I believe both of these guys had the potential to be starting defensive tackles. I'd be like, okay, we had a pretty good draft. We didn't need 2 defensive tackles within 11 picks of each other, especially when defensive tackles aren't necessarily the big sack getters. On our defensive line, the dude that led the team had 3 sacks last year. 3. That is not a good number. That is not a good number. You have edge rushers in this class. He would have been gone by here, but there was maybe like a Carl Brooks even. You were out of range a little bit for like the Keon Whites and the Derek Halls. You were a little bit out of range for that, but later in the draft we couldn't have gone like an Isaiah Land who 2 years ago had 19 sacks. I didn't stutter. 19 sacks 2 years ago, and on top of that, last year he added 7 more. In the last 2 years, he had 26 sacks. You're telling me that you don't want to go edge rusher? That shocked me. That shocked me. It really did. I know that they might be confident in the DeMarcus Walker pickup. Not a bad pickup. But you got to add another edge rusher, man. You got to. You got to. I know you like Travis Gibson, but you got to pick up somebody. Outside of those 2, I don't think anybody can sack the quarterback, regardless of who you got on the interior. Running back at 115, I didn't mind this. I thought we needed to get a running back, obviously. David Montgomery's out now. Also, speaking of David Montgomery, they traded DeAndre Swift to the Eagles. The Lions did. The Eagles, they had a phenomenal draft. They picked up DeAndre Swift. They got almost everybody fell in their laps. Keely Ringo fell into their laps. They got a lot of good players there on that Eagles team. I really don't know how. But Roschon Johnson, running back, gives you a little bit different of a look than Khalil Herbert does. He's going to be a back that, I mean, obviously last year he was kind of overshadowed there being behind Bijan Robinson. But this is a guy that's going to absolutely be worth every penny that you put on him. He's going to go out there and he could end up eventually being our every down back. I really believe in him that much. I do think that the change of pace back could be Khalil Herbert rather than Khalil Herbert being the every down back and Roschon being the change of pace. I think it could be the other way around. This kid's really talented. He has all the tools to be really good in this league. Only, I believe, 22 years old. Very good running back out of Texas. Obviously coming from a great running back room as it is. Don't mind that pick whatsoever. 133, we went Tyler Scott, Cincinnati. This is a speedster, man. 5'10", ran a 4.37, something like that. Very, very fast kid. Love this pickup. But once again, I thought maybe guard or center was more priority number 1 on this. But you did target a receiver that you guys liked in the draft process. You brought him in for a top 30 visit. You knew we were going to be targeting him. We knew we were going to be targeting around him, Trey Tucker, Dontavion Wicks, one of those mid day 3 kind of guys, whether that be the 4th, 5th, 6th round. But we knew we were going to be thinking about that a little bit. So Tyler Scott, don't mind it. Once again, would have preferred guard or center. 148, we took Noah Sewell. I think this is great value, but once again, very hard for me to think that the Bears did the right decision because I just see a very big concern, and it's the guys blocking Justin Fields. You have no depth there to begin with, and on top of that, we don't have a guaranteed group in front of Justin Fields. Tevin Jenkins and Cody Whitehair both have been on and off of whether or not they're in favor with the team. I don't like that. I don't like that for my star quarterback. I don't. I would have preferred to go an offensive lineman. But Noah Sewell, I think this is a really good pick value-wise. This is a kid that had a down year at Oregon. I'm actually repping Oregon. I went to the spring game earlier today. That's why you can see a little bit of sun on me. But Noah Sewell, you got to see him up close and personal when I was working with the team. Very good player. Very, very good player. And the thing with Noah Sewell is if you can get him in the right situation, he will be a really good player. He will. Obviously, last year, a lot of different things went into Noah having a down year. New coach, new defensive coordinator, this, that, and the other. Kind of switched up what he was used to. But Noah Sewell, very good player. Just hopefully he's able to revert to what we saw 2 years out of him, where he was one of those guys that could really be a first-round prospect. But you're getting all the tools there with Noah Sewell. I think he's a really good player. 165, you get Terrell Smith out of Minnesota, another defensive back. I know you got to need a corner. I know I like Jalen Jones. I know I like Kyler Gordon. I know I like Jalen Johnson. I know I like all those guys. I know we got Tyreek Stevenson. I know you got the corners. I don't think this was also a needed pick. It adds depth to the cornerback room that we could use depth in. I'm not going to lie, we do need depth there. But once again, I think that you watched a lot of guards and centers fall out of your lap. Luke Whippler was on the board here. Olu was on the board here. Jarrett Patterson was on the board here. John Gaines, I believe, was on the board here, who could play both positions. I mean, they just continuously watch these guards and centers drop, and I was like, surely this is it. Surely this is it. Surely this is the one. Surely it's now. Never was the case. Never was the case. Don't know why we double dipped on corners. I think we probably could have, like Starling Thomas the fourth. He fell out of the entire draft. He was a UDFA. I don't know where he signed or if he has signed yet by the time I'm recording this. But he fell out of the entire draft. I think he would have been good to pick up. So, I mean, there's definitely corners that you would have been able to get in UDFAs and really come in camp and really give some people some stress. But we took them. I'm not saying Terrell Smith's a bad player, nothing like that. I don't think we drafted any really bad players or anything like that. I just don't know if the positional value was there for us. We had other needs, at least in my opinion. Another defensive tackle here at 218. This really made me scratch my head. I was joking about it with my dad when we took both defensive tackles on day 2. I was like, surely we're going to another defensive tackle. We did go another defensive tackle. Travis Bell out of Kennesaw State. Very big kid. I don't think he's bad. He does give you the kind of similar stuff to what you see out of Zach Pickens and you see out of Gervon Dexter, where he can pretty much be what you want him to be. I mean, in the Bears system, the way they use defensive tackles, I could see him fitting in. But here's the thing, I don't think 3 defensive tackles is necessarily the right decision in the draft. I really don't. I know you like the kid, but at some point, you got to stop taking the same position, it feels like. It just feels really weird to me that you go 3 defensive tackles. 3. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm not a big fan of that at all. And then the last pick, the 258th, the second to last pick in the entire draft, we took Kendall Williamson, Stanford. They list him as a corner, but I believe we drafted him as a safety. Regardless, he is playing defensive backfield for us. Whether that's safety or corner, I don't think it's needed, especially after taking Terrell Smith. Terrell Smith, if he is playing corner, is going to be obviously like CB4, CB5. Kendall Williamson, he'd be CB6. And then also in that safety room, you don't need another safety. You got Dane Cruikshank as a backup. Last year you drafted Elijah. What's his last name? I was going to say Elijah Hughes, but that's a basketball player. The Cal kid. What is his name? It blanked on me. Oh gosh. What is his name? You drafted Elijah last year. The Bears. What was that kid's last name? He barely played for us last year. He wears like 37 or something like that. Oh, what's his name? Elijah Hicks. That's right. He has a concussion. That's probably not updated though. Probably at the end of the season. You drafted Elijah Hicks, so you have 2 backups already. You have a backup that you used for a pick last year, in Elijah Hicks. You have Dane Cruikshank, who is a very good backup. And then you got Jaquan Brisker and Eddie Jackson, both really good players that proved themselves last year. Eddie Jackson had a bounce-back year, and Jaquan Brisker, one of the best defensive rookies last year. So I don't really know why we went safety. So I pose this question to you once again. Why not guard? Why not center? That's really what made me confused here in this draft. And just because they double dipped so much on that defensive tackle and they double dipped on corners, I don't really know what to think. I really don't. I don't think they drafted bad players. I don't want you to think that's what I think. I don't think they necessarily made bad picks. I just don't. I question it. So for the jury for now, just because I don't know how many of these guys are really going to find a role, especially when you draft three defensive tackles. Are you moving one to end, or are you running two defensive tackles? What are we doing? What are we doing? Are we just going to have a revolving door of defensive tackles? Are we trading Justin Jones? I think the jury's out for a lot of this team. So I'm going to give it a C. Not high, not low. I'm just going to throw it right in the middle. I like the picks. I think we addressed the needs. I think we could have addressed some other needs, but you added depth at positions you think you might need depth at. But I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of it, so I gave it a C. End of story. Thanks all for watching. I'll see you next time.